And I was just going to announce that we will start the recording. This is the Community Preservation Committee meeting for Wednesday, December 8th. I thought we have some new faces, certainly in people that are speaking today, but I wanted to just take a minute and have everybody on the committee introduce themselves. Usually we'd say go around the table, but I think I have to just go around the screen. But I'm Gary Sorkin, and I am the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and I represent the excuse me, the Local Housing Partnership. So Jim, you want to go next?
Yes, I'm Jim McAuliffe, and I'm a member representing the Historical Commission.
Thank you. Fred?
Fred Streams. I represent the Open Space Committee.
Thank you. Geraldine?
Hi, I'm Geraldine Raymer. I'm a member at large.
Excellent. Rhonda?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Fowler. I'm the representative from the Recreation Department.
Thank you. Elaine?
Good morning. I'm Elaine McElroy, and I am the representative from the Housing Authority.
Jan? Jan, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm Jan Plowey. I am a member at large and also the vice chair of the committee.
Thank you, Jan. David?
David Demede Fox. I represent the planning board.
Excellent. Michael?
Michael Fisher. I represent the Conservation Commission.
Super. Have I gotten everybody on the committee? Looking at my screen, I think so. But anyway, welcome to all of those who will be presenting later. Pardon us for a few minutes while we go through some housekeeping, very important housekeeping things. But the first item on the agenda is about bonding. And this has to do with the presentation we had last month from Stuart Saganor, who is the chair of the statewide CPA committee, which I thought was terrific. And we learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things, especially about how we get what money we get. But be that as it may, he suggested that we take a look at the question of whether we can accept a CPA application on an as-needed basis outside of the dates that we have traditionally done, which is July 15th and November 15th, depending upon whether we have a fall town meeting. So he sent us the language from Concord, Mass, and they speak about something they call calling a meeting under special circumstances. Did everybody get that on the committee? No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and then Mary, much to her credit, found the original procedures that were first adopted in 2009 for the CPA and revised in 2013. And it refers to emergency nature, proposals of an emergency nature. So the question here is, do we need to change any of the procedures? And you all got those, right? It says Town of Wellfleet Community Preservation Committee Policies and Procedures.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm referring here to item number 6, which says proposals of an emergency nature. I have no idea what emergency nature may mean, but that's okay. We can define it as we need to. But if that's acceptable to everyone, I don't know that we have to adopt, per Stuart's suggestion, any other procedures, whether they're Concord's or anyone else's. So this has to do with, is there any need to change the procedures? Yes, David. David, I think you're muted.
My only thought is, even if we don't change anything, is there a way that we want to make this change in our awareness, let's call it, or our possibilities known somehow, I'm hesitating a little as I say that because I don't expect we want to have people say, oh, great, I can put in a proposal anytime and call it an emergency. And then we're just kind of in a chaotic situation. On the other hand, there is some legitimacy to letting the community know that this is something we might consider.
Right. I think the question is, if the committee accepts an application as quote unquote emergency by a majority vote, is that the definition of an emergency? So, we don't know obviously what the future will bring in terms of those requests. And it's obviously also has to be subject to availability of funds and approval at town meeting. So there are a number of caveats to it, but
Right.
how do anybody else have any?
I just want to add one other thing, if I could. I still wonder about the advisability, which I would kind of favor, of letting people know that this is a possibility, subject to availability of funds and a vote by the group, et cetera, because otherwise people could be in a real emergency situation and assume that they can't apply until the
Right.
normal dates.
So you raise a good, how do people know about this? Is the question. Any other thoughts from folks? What we could do, Mary, is the application that we use, is that a standard statewide application?
No, that's the wealthy application.
And I mean, is that is there standard ones that either the coalition or the state has?
Every town has its own. They're basically alike.
They're all best. So you do Truro. Is that the same one for Truro?
Very similar.
Okay. So in answer to David's point, maybe every time we send out an application package or we post it on the website, we could include this in the instructions, which would give people the opportunity to know, to the extent that those are the people who are applying. Does that get the job done?
I
David?
think there is a procedures page with the application. I'm not sure that it's this page. But it can be, it could be included.
But these
I
are
would
the
think
operative. These are the operative procedures that we have,
Right.
that people should be aware of.
I was thinking just, is it possible just to have a note on our webpage to this effect as something that we're open to, in addition to having it on the actual instructions, because someone might not even go look at the instructions if they think they can't do an emergency application.
Okay,
Yeah, we can put a
we can put it up there.
special, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, anything else on emergency procedures? Okay, I think Harry is going to talk a little bit about bonding. Is that the case, Harry?
Yes, if you'd like.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. And the Affordable Housing Trust has submitted a grant application to the committee. The grant application was for the 10% housing set aside. Since we filed that, we watched the same presentation that Gary watched about bonding. And it does seem to us that one of the challenges that we face in affordable housing is that there are no inexpensive solutions. And to do anything other than a one-off basis requires more than the kind of money that's available from annual revenues. So one of the options is to issue a bond funded by CPA revenues. And just to give you an example of one, and this is a spreadsheet that Gary procured, a $2 million bond over a 20-year period would require, I think, a commitment of CPA funds in the initial year of about $173,500. And I'll talk about the assumptions behind that in a minute. And it would decline over 20 years to a low of about $100,000. And so the assumptions behind this example, by the way, were a $2 million bond, a 20-year payback, and an interest rate a little bit over 3%. I think 3.15% was the number in the example. But in general, bonding using CPC funds isn't really any different from any other municipal bond in the sense that it requires town meeting approval. It has to fit within the town's borrowing capacity and all those things. And it also needs, as with any Community Preservation Act appropriation, needs the approval and recommendation from the CPC. I guess that's from 10,000, from 10,000 foot view. Do you want more detail, Gary, or where do you want to go with this?
If you want, we could put up that table on the screen, Harry. Or if people have questions about, here it is.
There's my screen, which is a little bit messy. Let me find the right document. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you can see here, basically, this is a debt service schedule, and it shows a $2 million principal bond. Municipal bonds are typically, unlike your mortgage, where there are level payments of principal and interest, municipal bonds are typically structured so that there is a level payment of principal. So you see $100,000 every year for 20 years to pay back the principal. And then the second component of the payment is interest on the outstanding balance. And so the total debt service, principal and interest, changes every year, it declines. So this is an example of a $2 million bond, and this column here, column G, is what the annual burden on CPA revenues would be to service this bond. Stuart, in his presentation, said that there were, I don't recall exactly the numbers, but slightly, somewhere over 50% of the communities that are CPA communities have done bonding. My notes from that seminar are just not right at hand. In this particular example, there's no state aid involved, so the total municipal burden would be the annual debt service. We'd pay it all. That does commit CPA funds for the duration of the bond. In other words, the town couldn't, if the town voted to leave the CPA program, this would still be an add to the tax rate, just like the CPA surcharge. It would stay in place. As far as where it fits in the town's borrowing capacity, the last time I looked, which was before we incurred debt for harbor dredging and the regional high school, Wellfleet was at about 17% of its municipal debt ceiling. So there's plenty of headroom for this, and this borrowing would not make it difficult for the town to borrow for other projects. Questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd add a couple of things to that, so that for the committee, it's the annual debt service column that would be needed, and this is the same in function as the land bank that we actually have just recently paid off, but was at the basis of the CPA and the CPC agreement, 20 odd years ago. So that we took over that debt and we paid the debt service on that, and it declined every year. But for us, if we were to borrow, authorize the borrowing of the $2 million in year one, actual payment isn't due for a while, but we would be committing $173,000 in year one and $168,000 in year two, et cetera. What I would say is that this is an actual spreadsheet from the bonding agent that the town uses.
Yeah.
The town has an excellent credit rating. And as Harry indicated, even a $2 million, which in bonding terms is a small amount, would not have a material impact on how much capacity the town has to borrow for future needs. So we're in good shape from a bonding perspective as a town. No one can predict what the rate will be when you go out, but this is probably a safe assumption. But an authorization to bond is not the same as actually borrowing the money. So the thought was here was, honestly, we can't compete for land against commercial buyers because we just can't move quickly. And that as opportunities come up, if we were to authorize the bonding of $2 million, we wouldn't actually borrow the money or incur the CPA cost until we had an opportunity in front of us. So this would give us the ability to borrow, but not actually make the borrowing. Michael.
Yes, I'm sure it's on the table somewhere, but what would be the total debt? I mean, the total interest payment on the $2 million?
660,000, Michael. Assume
Right.
with these assumptions on 20 years and 3.15 interest.
It's this column here.
Yeah.
Right. So that's $600,000 in addition. If we just gave the $2 million in the upfront, which we can't quite do, then that wouldn't be a charge, correct?
Correct. If we had the $2 million to grant, we wouldn't need to pay that. But much like buying your house or whatever it may be, that's the cost of borrowing.
Hey, Gary, I have a question.
Yeah.
It's Rhonda.
Sure, Rhonda.
I don't know how to put up my hand on this little computer. Is there, am I missing something? Is there something that's forthcoming that you're positioning yourself for?
Sure, we can talk about that in a minute. Or Harry, do you want to?
Well, briefly, what we have been seeing, and I'm sure if you read the newspapers or some other media, we're seeing things where properties go on the market on Thursday and by Monday they're gone.
Sure.
And that kind of timing is just inconsistent, except in very exceptional circumstances with a very committed seller. It's just inconsistent with, well, it's December, we'll ask for the money in April and we'll close in July. You can't compete with the marketplace with that kind of a response. So the hope here is by having a ready source of funds available, we can really telescope that timeline so that if there is a property and it is attractive from a housing standpoint, then all you have to do to pull the trigger is the treasurer borrows with the approval of the select board once we've gone through the CPC and town meeting. So we've shortened the time frame to respond, and we become a much more attractive buyer because our financing is in place. And we're not talking about 9 months to close a deal. We're talking about a much shorter period of time. So that's the rationale. It's not that we have identified a specific piece of property that we want to borrow this for, because even in the best of circumstances, if this process starts today, it doesn't get to a point where we can execute until after a town meeting, which is end of April.
Mhm.
Uh,
And what if a large
I'm
tract
sorry.
of land miraculously appears that's more than $2 million?
That would be a discussion with the select board about whether they're willing to finance a purchase outside of CPA funds, and whether they're willing to call a special town meeting on an expedited basis to be responsive. Without being specific, the select board recognizes the scope of the housing problem, and I think would be receptive to doing that if an opportunity presented itself.
I think David had his hand up first.
Yes, thank you. I'm curious, Harry, if you have done or could do any kind of an estimate of how quickly we could actually move. I heard what you said a minute ago, but I'm just interested in that. And before you answer, I just wanted to say to the rest of us more broadly that certainly I understand we can't do it as part of the same bond, but it seems to me there's the possibility of a bond issue that we may want to deal with to do with some of our other categories at some point. But in any case, we're talking about housing now. So I get that it'll save time. Will it save enough time if someone's buying a house in 3 days?
I think that another piece that we still need is a seller who sees some value in being a good citizen and doing a deal with the town. We still can't compete with somebody that says, okay, I can spend, $1 million on this property and I can run it as an Airbnb and I can make money and don't care about the rest of you. But there are a lot of our fellow citizens do see some value in being part of a project that's good for the town. And so while this means we can't pull the trigger on every deal, it means that we can probably pull the trigger on more deals than we could today. As far as the specifics of timing, David, I can't give it to you in days, but basically, what typically happens with a municipal bond is once the decision to go in the marketplace is made, the town asks for proposals and investors bid on the bond, and that's how you find out what the interest rate is. And it still requires action by the treasurer, who's the person who has the authority to issue the bond. And typically town meeting votes put some controls on that in the sense that they require the treasurer to get the approval of the select board. And in the case of a bond like this, we might want to, if we were going to do it, to specify a minimum time period too. Just because you don't want the treasurer to say, oh, it makes financial sense to issue a 10-year bond instead of a 20-year bond. And I'm sorry, the principal repayments just doubled and the burden on the CPC funds has just gone from $175,000 a year to $275,000 a year. So maybe that's close to an answer.
Well, just one other thing. I wonder if in terms of let's say we have a willing buyer or willing seller rather in the picture, is there a way, this is a broader question than the bond itself, because the bond wouldn't be available, the funds wouldn't be available right away. Is there a way to do a significant enough deposit that would be some financial security for the seller, even if they're oriented towards wanting to sell it through this mechanism, 10, 20, 30, $40,000. I don't know the amount, but is that a possibility that could be done in a matter of days?
I think the answer to that is yes, with a little caveat about finding our way through the accounting thicket that Wellfleet is in.
Right.
Because we
right.
do have the $500,000 CPC grant from last year's town meeting, which we could presumably, with a vote from the Affordable Housing Trust, write a check. So that's something that's, you know, in a week, we could bind a deal. We probably can't do it in, 48 hours, but, we could in a week.
Yeah, okay. And we could work on our speed over time, who knows?
Well,
Thank you, David. Thank you, Harry. Dan, you had a question?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. Do we have for today a proposal
So
to do this work? And if we don't, could we go on to the important work that we have to do today, of all these people who are waiting to present to us, and save this for our next meeting? Is that
Jan-
possible?
Jan, the reason why this is timely is that if we were to go forward with this proposal of a $2 million bond for housing, we would need to set aside that money from the money that we are talking about allocating today.
But we don't have a proposal for that on our list of proposals.
So the question was, would the committee entertain us modifying the request for the 10% to include to change it to a request for the underlying payment for a bond of $2 million.
I see.
So that's why it's, Jan, that's why we can't award the money today and then go back and say, oh, we want to do this.
Well, technically you can, because you can borrow it all, no? You can,
We don't have the money, Jan, given the town's accounting dilemma, the only money that we have, maybe I'll do this as the next item,
okay.
but
I get it.
anyway, the reason why we are doing it today, Jan, is that we may need to consider this in the allocation of funds going forward.
Gary, just a
Sure, Harry.
quick timing comment. I do
Just-
have a meeting scheduled for the Affordable Housing Trust for this coming Monday.
Right.
And that will be on the agenda to discuss that. Unfortunately, the whole idea of bonding came up, the timing of it really just wasn't very helpful with the CPC's requirements for November 15th filing. This idea was developed after that.
Right, and honestly, after we got the presentation from Stuart, both about can we do it, and the answer to someone raised the question of can we mix town funds and CPA funds and how to do that, but also the question of the timing of the application all kind of came together with this. So with that in mind, I think the question is whether or not the committee would accept a modification from the trust of its request to cover the cost of bonding, which in year one would be 173,000.
Gary, it's Rhonda.
Sure.
Admittedly, I am confused, and I'm going to ask for clarification. I'm feeling overwhelmed because we're having so much difficulty with our accounting issues and not knowing what monies we have to begin with and how we're going to fund the things that we have before us. And how does this jive with that dilemma that we've been toiling with already? I just really need some guidance on what it all means in terms of numbers.
Okay, I can talk to you about what our how much money we have to award today. So, Harry, is there anything else on the bonding that you want to raise?
No, and I'll stop sharing my screen so that everybody can see everybody.
Any other questions on that? Okay, so the question came up about how much money do we have to spend today? And so if you look, we have my notes. Okay.
It's like 537 or something, isn't
So
it?
let me walk you through it. So the total amount that we have available to award today is $738,984.
Okay,
That is based upon the FY '22 CPA receipts.
mhm,
21 receipts.
I'm sorry?
The 21 receipts?
Right, it's a projection, but it's the FY '22 number. And that is a combination of the actual amount from the 3% override on our real estate taxes, which is estimated to be 591,000.
Yes, the fiscal year 23. It's fiscal year 20.
Right, but what Mary is talking about is that this is the money that will be available to spend as of July 1, which is FY '23.
This is 738 or the 591.
The 591 is the base amount, and the state match that we have available to spend today is 147,000.
Yeah, okay.
So that gives
So
us a total of 738.
738 for July.
Right, but it's not that we have that straightforward. We have the following requirements that we have to fill out, which is the 10%, roughly 74,000. That has to go to open space, 74,000 to housing, and 74,000 to historic. And we also have the administrative costs of 5% that we have to set aside. So if you take those into consideration, the actual amount that we have that is quote unquote discretionary is the $480,000 that's on your spreadsheet. So 480,000 is the discretionary amount. If you look at what we have in terms of what the ask is this year, it's substantially more than that. If I remember correctly, the original ask was 1.2 million and change. We deferred on one last time, and we reduced one last time, so that the net amount is roughly of the ask is 1.15 million. So that's really the question today. That's why the set aside, in prior years, we had more in our historic reserves so that we could handle a request, whether bonding or whatever it may have been, with the historic reserves. We don't have access to that money today. And that's why the decisions we make today about what we grant may foreclose other options, critical options for the town. That's why we bring it up, Rhonda. Everybody comfortable on that? Any questions on the numbers for today?
No question on the numbers. I just thinking ahead here. It seems to me what we're talking about with the bonding decision is different from anything else in that it's not spending money right away. It's giving us the possibility of spending money. And certainly we have to be ready for it being utilized and factor in the annual payments, no question about that. But at the same time, it's not a done deal in any way, and it's not like granting money to an organization.
But you have to have the 175,000
Right. Yeah.
set aside already before
Right.
you can.
No, correct. That's why I said we'd have to factor in the annual payments, of course, but I'm saying this, but to get to me, it's just in a different bucket. The money's the money, it's the same. But we're basically, if we go with the bonding approach, we're basically creating a mechanism for spending money in this way. We're not actually spending the money right now.
And to take that one step further, David, we're not spending the money right now, and it's subject to, unlike the other items on our agenda, a 2/3 vote at town meeting. So it's
Okay. Yeah.
and we don't actually spend the money until we go out to, so it's an authorization to borrow, but it's
Right.
not actually borrowing until a time that we have the opportunity and we go out into the marketplace to raise that money, and then the obligation to pay it back.
Right. And for that reason, it seems to me more than I would support the idea of getting this mechanism established so that we have this option in front of us. That would be my view.
Yeah, right. That's
But
all we're
that
saying.
takes 175,000 off the 480.
No,
Well, not
Correct.
really, Jan. Remember the Jan, let me explain. The 10% set aside would go towards this amount.
Okay, so
So-
100,000 then.
So it's really 100,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly right.
But
Right.
that's 100,000 off of 480 when we have so many needs in front of us already.
Exactly. But if
Yeah.
we don't
Well-
do it now, we won't have the money to do it again until this time next year.
But maybe by then our financial situation with the town will be figured out, and we'll know that we have more money than they think we have to
We
use.
can- Right. We can,
I have no doubt of that.
Jan, we can speculate all we want, but
Well,
the only
I-
money we have today is the money we have before.
480, right,
Exactly.
right, which is
Okay.
why I think we need to be very cautious.
Exactly right. So when we
Sure.
look at actually making an award, we have to take all of that into account. All right, are there other questions about the numbers? So we skipped over approval of our minutes of our meeting of November 17th. So,
I move we approve the minutes of our last meeting.
okay, are there any?
Second, Michael?
Thank you, Michael. Are there any corrections or changes?
I think I just found a typo and.
Yeah, there's one I saw about the,
It was like through with an extra U in it.
so I'll move that we, assuming it's been moved and seconded, that we approve them as amended, if that's acceptable. So all those in favor of accepting the minutes, signify by raising your hand saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions? Excellent. All right, so we finally come to the time of the meeting, and I apologize to everybody who's been listening in to speak about the actual applications that we have before us. So I think no particular order, but Mary and I talked about it. And if we could ask the people from the playground if they would like to identify themselves, introduce themselves, and then we can open up to questions, or if you have other things you'd like to say, please do. Mary Beth?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I do have a brief presentation just to bring some more information to you. Lisa
Mary Beth,
Holmes.
can I interrupt you and say, can you identify yourself and
Oh, sure. Mary Beth Rodman, principal of Wellfleet Elementary School. And joining me today is Lisa Holmes, who's a former teacher here at the school, and she is a resident of Wellfleet and a parent of children who will be coming to Wellfleet Elementary School in the near future. And we also have Joe DeFore with us, who is the representative from the playground vendor, O'Brien and Sons. So if I may, I just have a brief statement of more information to share with you. Joe is here. He can answer some of the technical questions. One being that there were questions that were posed by the committee that he has answers to, as well as if we need to phase in the playground, 3 different phases. That could be a potential avenue to go for the playground project. So on behalf of the Wellfleet Elementary Playground Committee, thank you for the opportunity to share this information with you and to be available to answer any additional questions. Much like a community center, Wellfleet Elementary School is the hub for town activity. It is a community school providing indoor and outdoor space for programs and activities for students and stakeholders from the lower and outer Cape. Many working parents of Wellfleet benefit daily from the free registered West After School Child Care Center program. This program ensures a good dose of outdoor activity and playtime Monday through Friday for all who attend. Wellfleet is currently seeking ways to attract and retain young families, including the development of the affordable housing complex across from West. Recreational spaces such as a school playground will be enticing for recruiting young families to the town and will be a benefit in ease of access for the housing complex. In 2018, West welcomed the Recreation Department and had them move their office from Town Halls to Wellfleet Elementary School. The goal of this ever-growing partnership is to expand the school's use as an after-hours community center, offering interesting, varied, and exciting courses, activities, programs, and workshops to engage our community in lifelong learning. Our collaboration with the Rec Department aligns perfectly with the new Nauset Strategic Plan and the Wellfleet Elementary School Improvement Plan. Goal 5, to be specific, that is titled Community Schools, with an action to create partnerships between the school and the community at large, where all members of the community can come together to learn, to teach, and to share ideas. West has been the appropriate location for many town events, such as town meetings, flu and COVID-19 vaccine clinics, COVID-19 testing sites, shark forums, community spaghetti suppers, and parent workshops. An elementary school playground sets the stage to optimize children's social, emotional, and physical and cognitive development. A safe and appropriate outdoor environment encourages free play, exercise, social skills building, leadership skills, self-discipline, problem solving, planning strategies, creativity, exploration, math and scientific inquiries, and overall well-being. Wellfleet has been fortunate to benefit from the generous funding provided by the Community Preservation Act. The Community Preservation Committee does an admirable job in studying the needs of the town, including the development of outdoor recreational facilities. As a result of the $470,000 funding from the CPC, Wellfleet is now home to an amazing skate park, outdoor pickleball and tennis courts, and a beautiful 3-season pavilion at Bakersfield. Through creative planning, growing partnerships, and successful collaboration, the town of Wellfleet has an established community center within their neighborhood school. Wellfleet Elementary School is accessible and utilized 365 days a year and will serve our community well and will benefit from a safe and engaging playground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Anybody else from your group? Otherwise, I'll throw it open to the committee for questions.
I would like to ask Joe if he could share with you some of the answers to questions that were posed, as
Sure.
well as some of the phase options.
Great. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, everyone. So
Welcome.
I've been working with Mary Beth in designing and developing a playground for the school. The design that we currently have right now is to meet school, the volume of kids, the age appropriateness of the kids, the various, types and abilities of kids that are at that school, that would use it obviously during the day. But then, as Mary Beth mentioned, it also functions as a community playground, you know, and is used after hours too. So you'll get kids there that of different ages that are not necessarily, you know, the age of the school age kids. So this playground, as it stands right now, has been designed to meet all those needs of a public playground. It's been designed to meet the base level ADA requirements from the state of Massachusetts. It's been designed to meet all other state and federal regulations for playgrounds. So, you know, right now we have kind of the best playground design that we can fit on that site. So I believe Mary Beth has shared with you the renderings and, you know, the financials of it and how it lays out. This would be, you know, procured through a state contract. So there is actually a discount because of the state contract. All that's been shown in the financials. And so, you know, typically when I present this to, you know, an audience of people, they're shocked at the price tag. These projects get very expensive very fast. However, there's, you know, there's big reasons for that. This equipment is commercial grade equipment. It's designed and engineered and tested and certified. It will last, you know, 20 plus years. We've designed it with, you know, almost no maintenance to the playground. So there's no recurring charges, you know, every year in maintenance costs. And the way it's designed is to alleviate as much liability to the school, to the town. You know, we try to eliminate liability because that's a huge factor in today's day and age. So you have, you know, great quality equipment. You have surfacing, which is where, you know, injuries can happen is because of surfacing underneath the play equipment. We have great surfacing in this design. We have, you know, certified installation in this design. So everything is there. It's great. You know, it would be a phenomenal asset to the town and to the school. Now, like I said, Mary Beth has shown you the price tag of it. That's where it's at right now. You know, the current market and, you know, supply chain issues have, you know, really changed items for us. That pricing that I'm showing you now is obviously just you know, it's a 30-day price. Steel pricing is still going up every day. Freight and all that changes daily. So, you know, obviously if you can afford the full playground and the full design, now's the time to do it because going forward, prices are going to, you know, continue to increase. Understood that it is a big price tag. If you can't do that all now, we can phase this design. And I sent Mary Beth, and I believe she had sent it out to you guys also, a phased approach. And that would be to basically split this playground design into 3 phases. Phase 1 is the majority of the playground. We need to provide play equipment there, you know, for the majority of the kids, obviously. You know, you want to keep kids moving when they're out on recess. There's all different types of play on this playground design. Phase 1 is the big portion of the design. If we were to phase this, I did provide pricing. Okay, great. Phase 1 that you're seeing is the left side of the screen. It's in black there. So that's the majority of the play equipment. It's a very large play structure. It has integrated, you know, multiple components of climbing, sliding, sensory play, imaginary play, is all happening on that structure, and the components, spinning, clay, all happening in phase one of this playground. So currently, the way it stands, if you were to proceed with just phase one, you're looking at a price tag of about $265,000. So that is, substantially less than the entire project. If you then went to phase two is on the right-hand side of the property. That is the swing area. So there are 6 swings there. There are 2 ADA swings and 4 standard swings that are age appropriate. So the development of that swing area by itself at a later time, phase 2 would cost, you're looking at approximately $70,000. And I say approximate because I'm projecting a point in time down the road that I don't know exactly what hard costs are going to be in a year, 6 months, 2, 3, 4 years. So approximately $70,000 for phase 2. And then the third and final phase would be phase 3 right in the center. This is a great large piece of equipment that kids absolutely love. It's called a zip cruise. So it's similar to a zip line. If you're not familiar with what that term is, it's basically posts that are 40 feet apart and a track in between, and kids hold on to a rope and they sit on a small seat and they slide from one end to the other end along this track. You can see there's 2 parallel tracks. So one track has a regular seat and a rope. The other track is for ADA accessibility, where it has a hard seat. So similar to like almost like a roller coaster seat that has a harness that holds you in place. The child will slide from one end to the other on this track. It's a great, phenomenal piece. Kids love it. And, but then the price tag on that, just that phase 3, the price tag is approximately $76,000. So, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, obviously, if you add up the single phases, you come out to, what's my numbers here?
Couple, 20,000 more.
400, yeah, I think about 30. I did the calculations yesterday, but I don't have them written down.
We can do that. That's okay.
Yeah, obviously, if you phase the project, it costs more because we're, mobilizing, we're in and out of the site, and prices go up in time. So, to do the entire project, it's cost effective to do it now as an entire project, all 3 phases now. However, I understand, everyone has budgets to work with. And if it's not in the budget for all now, then we could phase this.
Great.
Thank
you, Joe.
I think that's basically it on, the design, the approach, and the pricing for this project.
So my quick math says that'd be about 411 versus 385.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
I think, Jan, you had your hand up first, and then I'll get to Becky. Jan, do you have?
I took it down because Joe answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I'll recognize you in a second, Becky. Are there members of the committee that have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Becky.
Yes, good morning, Gary. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me this morning. I just wanted to speak in
Becky,
favor.
Becky, let me interrupt and say, could you just identify yourself for everybody?
Yes, of course. My name's Becky Rosenberg. I'm the Wellfleet Recreation Director. This is now, I can't believe it, but almost 22 years in this position. So I'm very much grateful to the town and still very much love the job after all this time. But anyways, I just wanted to quickly reiterate what Mary Beth said, because I'm not sure everyone is aware of the extent to which the school and the rec department have been working together to create a community center at the school. We did move our office there in 2018, but of course, up until then, we were always welcomed doing pretty much any kind of programming we suggested. They were very welcoming, but with the school as our base and enthusiastic sharing of the facility, the school has become a hub for the community, with all ages from preschool through adults utilizing the facility. Like Mary Beth said, 7 days a week. As things open up from the pandemic, this vision will be more fully realized. The creation of a safe and upgraded playground at the school will further enhance the use of this hub by the entire community. All after school and summer recreational programs will be able to utilize the playground. It will offer an additional outdoor recreation opportunity for residents and visitors all year round, and be used by the affordable housing complex being built across the street. A dynamic state-of-the-art playground will be a draw for families, enabling Wellfleet to maintain the diversity and age range so vital to the preservation of a strong, dynamic community. The Recreation Department strongly supports this grant application and urges the committee to embrace this opportunity to preserve the community in this way. So
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to let you know.
Thank you,
all that's
Becky.
going on.
Appreciate your support and coming today. Jan, now,
Now I would like to make a proposal, if I may. And then, of course, you can discuss it endlessly, but it has nothing to do with my having been a school committee person for so many years. Really, I think every adult in this community wants the children to have it's not just extraordinary advantages, although if we can give them those, we choose to do so when we can. But this is basic need for the children. And because of the financial situation, I propose that we set aside $265,000.
Jan, can I interrupt you for just a second? I think
Yeah.
we're gonna take the money issues and after everyone makes their presentations, and then we'll look at allocating them dynamically. So rather than
Well, how can we do that?
Well, let's hear what everyone else has to say first. So I do have a couple of other questions. My first one, Mary Beth, we talked about whether a community build would significantly either enhance the project or save money. Do you or Joe want to comment on the community build aspect to it?
Sure. I can start by saying that in consultation with the finance director for Nassau Public Schools, that they would not support a community build because of the liability. It's too great. Joe can speak more specifically, but when we did speak, there wasn't really an advantageous savings with a community build, and given the size and scope of the project, that we most likely would not have the number of volunteers that we would need in order for a community build to be efficient. And Joe, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, years ago, a community build was an option to save money. Playground equipment was much more basic in design and engineering. It was easier to do a community build years ago. today's equipment requires, some of the pieces here are going to require, large machinery to erect and to put together. There's components that could be designed as a community build, but honestly, it's not going to save a ton of money.
Okay,
We're honestly probably talking 20, maybe $20,000, but the opens up the window of liability. For a community build on this project, I would require at least 45 to 50 volunteers. And, managing that is no fun task. I've done it many times. And that's the liability that gets opened up. So realistically, a community build's not a great option
not a viable
for this playground of this size.
Okay. You mentioned the price and the sticker shock. I wonder if you could tell us, relative to other towns, either on the Cape or in the state, is this price tag consistent with what the other towns are doing?
Yes, so we've been doing playgrounds for 94 years, and we are the largest provider in New England. We do an extreme amount of retrofits, brand new playgrounds, new schools that are being built. The typical elementary school playground right now, for whether it's a complete retrofit or even brand new school being built, they're running anywhere from 250,000 to about 500,000, about $500,000. That's the window that we're seeing with all schools. Obviously, like I said, if it doesn't allow in the budget, we can scale down, we can redesign, we can do things to bring the price point down. But it is very common right now, the past 4 or 5 years, the average price tag for an elementary school playground with the size of your school, and it also being used as a community playground, then yeah, you're definitely looking 250 to 500,000.
It's like the price of houses in Wellfleet. So it's shocking what they are, but that's what they are. So,
but it
right.
will last as long, quite a long time, almost as long as that house probably.
Yeah, I had just one other question, and Mary Beth, how much money have you raised? I know you've had an active outreach. We see a lot of interest in the community, and how much have you raised, and how much do you think you can raise?
To date, we are just under $20,000, and that's in about 5 weeks' time.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I did do some research as to other funding sources and grants. And unfortunately, the 16 that I came across, we did not qualify for, we were not eligible for, and mainly for 2 reasons. Most are grants that are applicable to certain states or certain counties. And secondly, due to COVID, there are places that are not offering grants. They're not accepting any applications. So I stopped after doing 16 sort of dives into what these grant folks have to offer and who they're offering them to. So unfortunately, there wasn't anything other than seeking some private business and in-kind donations. The donations have sort of slowed down, if you will. I don't know if that's because of that we're coming up to the holidays. I'm not sure if the committee will want to do another sort of push with our writing campaign to get more information out there. It has been posted on the PTA website. It has been posted on our Twitter account. It has gone out in our Parent Square communication platform. So I'm not sure, Gary, if we will be receiving much more than the current, just about 20,000. And if I could, I just wanted to go back to the previous question because I do have some more tangible information relative to like projects in the past few years. So for example, Chatham Elementary School, their playground total budget was $376,000. And their CPA grant request was for $350,000. That was in 2018, and the project was completed by 2019. In Barnstable, West Barnstable, their total budget was $400,000, and their CPA grant request was for $390,000, and that was in 2017 with the build in 2018. The Board Preservation Committee had requested $175,000 for phase 1 of their playground, and that was in 2017. And lastly, the Eddy Elementary School in Brewster back in 2015 was awarded $100,000 for the CPA grant, and their total budget was $240,000 for their playground.
Great.
So I just
Thank
wanted to give you that specific info.
Okay, and Mary Beth, the last question I had was, if you were to do it on a phased approach, or even if you do it all at once, if you reduce the ask to the town for their capital budget, do you think that, I know it's speculative, but is there any chance the town will come up with some money for it?
Well, currently, I met with the town last night, the select board, and they have some hefty capital improvement projects from the fire department, the DPW, as well as the elementary school. The elementary school, for example, next year, it looks like we are going to have to update our request for funding for a required fire suppression system that should have been installed in the early 1990s, and it was not for whatever reason. So originally, when we had put it into the SIP, it was for 1.2 million. It is now, it was not put on the town warrant for this past town meeting. It has increased now to 2.2 million based on our architects, Habib and Associates. And so Charlie Sumner, the town administrator, said it will probably be an override item. So I think the answer is not
no.
at this time. And of course, everything kept getting bumped back with other priorities coming to the surface based on our asset assessment. And the playground now has landed in FY25. So that's why we were mobilized to move quicker for our kids.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Elaine, I see you've had your hand up for a while. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm curious, Joe, how long does it take to build a playground like this? If the decision was made, I have to ask too, if money was approved at the April town meeting, is it available right away, or is it a July 1st right now?
I can answer actually the availability question. Elaine, my understanding after talking with Mary is that this money would not be available until July 1.
Okay, and I guess I was curious how long it would take to create, especially the phase 1. How long a build would that take? How quickly could that be done?
Sure. So phase 1 by itself, if you were to move forward with that project, that would be a 3 to 4 week construction process before anyone could use it.
Okay.
Joe, to follow up on Elaine's question, let's assume that it's approved by, money is approved by our committee and then goes to town meeting in April, even though the funds are not available for payment until July 1, assuming an April town meeting, when could you have the playground actually done?
So, that's the tricky question. Do we order equipment in February and take the risk of assuming that funds will become available in July 1? My company's been very fortunate to run that risk with municipalities and schools. So it is typical that if you guys say to me, hey, look, we don't see any reason why this would get shot down at town meeting in April, then we would probably put an order in to get into production, sometime in February, maybe March. Then that gives us the lead time for production. And then we could, install in July, August, and, and have it ready before school opens.
So if we approve something realistically, the summertime.
Yeah, it's a summertime project and build, which is
Right.
great for everybody. I can't build it in the spring and then, wait until end of summer for payment.
Okay.
Joe,
David, you have your hand up. Excuse me just a second. David, go ahead. Then Rhonda.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if, I think I know the answer to this, but if the total cost is 385, could we reasonably deduct 20, which you've raised, to make it a $365,000 award if we decide to do it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Rhonda, I'm sorry.
Joe, hi, Rhonda Fowler, Rec Department. Question that I have in terms of phase two, well, phase one has no swings, is that correct?
Correct.
And ADA acceptable, housed within parts 1 or 1 and 2? How does that work?
So the design will meet ADA requirements, and the structure, phase 1 by itself will meet ADA. Once you met your ADA requirements for the playground, if you then go to phase 2 and put in swings, it's an addition. We would meet the ADA requirement for the swings. It doesn't necessarily add to or take away from the ADA of the playground by itself.
To me, swings, I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, to me, having swings on a playground is like the first thing that I think of. The components of phase 2 in my mind, in a traditional playground are so important to put with phase 1. Because the basic equipment is housed in that, is it not? Swings and such.
So swings are not a requirement in any way.
Right.
Kids do love them, yes. It's still something that
Mhm.
kids need to learn and develop that strength in that
Sure.
motion.
Sure.
In today's day and age, swings are very expensive for what they provide. We look at it at play value. What's the value of that phase 2? So phase 2 is 6 swings. We're providing play for 6 kids, and we're taking up, over 2,000 square feet of space, and we're spending $70,000. So you can see that there's not a lot of value as far as monetary play value
Right.
in those swings.
Right.
And a lot of playgrounds do forego swings because they want to get, play value for the kids. We want to accommodate more than 6 kids. So
talk about phase 1 and 3. Talk about phase 1 and 3. That interests me, that perspective.
Yeah, so obviously phase 1 is going to accommodate the most kids. It's
Right.
keeping kids out in the playground and engaged and moving and kind of, spread out through the playground.
Sure.
So you don't bottleneck the
Sure.
kids in any one
Yeah.
spot. Now, phase 3 it's a great piece in that the motion behind it is similar to swings, but they're gliding through that space. And it just, it fills and it fits that space that you have. So you already have a predefined area behind that school. So, we were designing to fit the space, to fit the needs. And that's
Sure.
why we chose that particular piece to fit in there.
Sure. So it almost seems like bang for buck, if it can't be in everything the phase 1 and 3, and adding swings Or, I mean, it sounds like 1 in 3 is the biggest bang for the buck that serves the most kids in the community. Not
I'd
sure.
agree with that. Yeah, I would agree
Okay,
with that.
just wondering, just simply
Yeah,
wondering.
We'll let this, oh, Mary Beth, go ahead. I'm sorry. Mary Beth, you're muted. Mary Beth.
Thank you. I just want to say that the components that are included in the renderings came from the data we collected from the various surveys that we did prior to lockdown. And what was really interesting between the adults, that means staff, stakeholders, and parents, and what the students had provided for data were virtually the same in terms of their preferred components. So the one that came out first as preferred was a climbing structure, which is in phase 1. The one that came out at number 2 were the swings. And
Yeah.
anecdotally, being out on the playground during recess time, the couple of swings that we had were a preferred item if kids were not doing, a running, chasing, going down the slides.
Sure, thank you.
So
Yeah,
I just want you to know that what is in here, what's in the renderings are specific to what came out in our surveys.
perfect. Thank you for explaining that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee or comments from anyone else? Mary Beth and Joe, oh, I'm sorry, David, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick note. Unfortunately, I have a hard stop at about 10 of 11 on my end. I know
Okay.
we got a lot to cover still. Just wanted to mention that.
Yes, so if there are any other comments or questions that folks have? It is a long meeting today, so I apologize. But Joe and Mary Beth and Lisa, thank you, and Becky, thank you so much for coming before the committee today. And I think I speak for everyone and say there's a lot of enthusiasm and support for this project. The question is, how do we balance it against the various needs of the community? So, but thank you again for your time today.
Gary, I will send the phased document to Mary Rogers so that the committee has a copy of that.
Thank you very much, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
If there's no more on the playground, then I'd like to ask the person from Lily House. I'm scrolling my screen here.
It's Don Walsh.
Don, I'm sorry. Don, would you just identify yourself and then if you want to make a statement, or we can just proceed with questions from the committee.
You're
Dawn,
muted.
you're muted.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. I am Dawn Walsh. I'm the kind of original visionary of the Lily House, and then one of 3 co-founders who got us off the ground with our 501c3 status, and then served as the first board president, and most recently have moved from board president to inaugural director, executive director. So I've been with this Lily House project from vision to this current moment. And the Lily House and where this kind of vision and community need came from, identified community need, was from my work as a hospice volunteer here on the Outer Cape, which I've been doing for about 4 years. And I moved to Provincetown. I live in Wellfleet now, but I had originally moved to Provincetown for a job at the Fine Arts Work Center in 2015. But I have been doing this end of life work for a long time, including, again, doing hospice volunteering here. And I immediately saw how many of us, the vast majority of us, were dying in facilities and nursing homes, being transferred to hospitals in crisis situations. And we're, to say the least, not having optimal quality of death experiences. And it was really heartbreaking to me. I would have, in comparison, a few patients that did have the support to stay at home at the end of life. And that was really beautiful. And they were really held in their end of life experience. That was not very many people. The vast majority of folks that I was working with were were alone, frankly. You know, they had become essentially homeless because they did not have the support to stay in their own home at the end. So in that sense, they did become homeless at the end of life. They were alone, scared, nervous, not understanding what was happening. And it was heartbreaking to me. And I just knew that we as a community could respond together as a community and provide us with an opportunity to come together to help and support each other at the end of life and provide a community home for those who essentially don't have a home at the end of life. They don't have the resources, whether it's financial and or, you know, a caregiving support system to stay at home. So that's where the Lily House came from. And we are, we have been gifted a property in Wellfleet at 40 Pocahontas Road, which is extraordinary. Wellfleet residents who asked that we, the Lily House, not promote her because she wanted this gift to be a gift of legacy. And she was able to have a really beautiful at-home supported death experience. She knew that most people do not have that, and she wanted to give her home so that others could have the highest quality end of life experiences possible. So that's what we're dedicated to. Our mission is to providing around the clock compassionate, holistic care to 2 residents at a time at this property at 40 Pocahontas Road in Wellfleet, Indian Neck area. And we will serve approximately 20 to 25 people per year, even though we have 2 residents at a time. We are set up truly for end of life care. So folks will come to us in their final months of life and realistically will be with us for an average about a month before their transition. So that's how we get, you know, kind of a larger number of folks that we're serving per year, although we're serving 2 residents at a time. So I think that's enough to get us started, perhaps, and I would love to hear what questions you have for us.
Sure. Michael,
Yes,
thank you very much, Don, for being with us today.
yes, thank you for organizing this whole project. So the very difficult question obviously is going to be, how do you even out 25 people at 2 at a time? It's not going to be an even flow. There's going to be backups, there's going to be gaps. So what is a realistic number of people that you can actually serve, individual people?
Well, we're basing that we're basing that, you know, on a metrics of, you know, having two rooms, an average stay of a month at a time, given taking into consideration, Michael, that's a good question, nice kind of, you know, perhaps gaps. But what we do know is the need for this service is so great that we will have a waiting list. There's no doubt about that. I get calls regularly from the medical hospice providers on the Cape, from Beacon, VNA, and Broadreach, where our 3 medical hospice providers saying, are you open yet? Are you open yet? Are you open yet? Because every day they're working with patients who have to leave their home and literally have nowhere to go. So we know we will have a waiting list, and how do we manage that? Is that we, because we are located, it's a nuanced metric, right? And it will be, the short answer is that it will be managed literally on a case-by-case situation. But some factors that we will consider is location, right? We are in Wellfleet, so we will consider folks who are in Wellfleet, and we'll have a priority in others in the Outer Cape. And then we'll also consider actual need. So what I mean is kind of how kind of dire is this situation, right? Is this person truly absolutely 100% alone? Are they actually already living in a homeless shelter, right? Or do they have some support, but, you know, they think, oh, this would be a really great option, but it's not a dire situation. So it's a very nuanced consideration, but we have a strong understanding of what those nuanced considerations need to be. And this is a good time to kind of mention that we are doing this work as part of a national grassroots movement to increase the quality of end-of-life experience, because this statistic of 80% of us wanting to die at home, but only 20% of us do, is nationwide. And so there is a nationwide movement of folks like us in local communities, coast to coast, building these, what are often called social model hospice homes, to address this need. So we're not doing this in a vacuum. The Lilly House is a member house of the Omega Home Network, which is a national network of homes like ours. So we have access to workshops, conferences, online forums, you know, best practices from homes that have done this and have been up and running for many years. So we have great guidance on kind of a regional and national level to do what we do. And we're at the forward leading edge of this movement in the state of Massachusetts, in particular, of course, on Cape Cod. We will be the first and only such home on Cape Cod, and only the second social model hospice home that I'm aware of. We've done extensive research trying to find if there's others. Only the second in the entire state of Massachusetts. So this is a nationwide movement that we're bringing very locally here to Cape Cod and Wellfleet.
So if you're recruiting from the Outer Cape, are you also applying for CPC money from other towns?
We will be, yes, but right now in this moment, we've started with Wellfleet because we are located in Wellfleet, and that made the most sense to start with Wellfleet. But FYI, I just moved to Wellfleet September 1 because the Lilly House is here and I want to be here. But when I was living in Provincetown, I myself served on the Community Preservation Committee there in Wellfleet for 4 cycles. So I'm very familiar and big fan of this committee and the work that they do. And again, served myself on this committee in P-Town for 4 years. So considering, depending on what happens here and how this goes, considering possibly applying for Provincetown this year, but realistically not, just given the timing of everything. But in the future, we would love to apply for multiple town support.
Thank you, Dawn. Other folks that have questions about Lilly House? Yes.
How are you going to pay for the day-to-day care of the patients?
Thank you. Great question. So we have a daily rate identified of $250. And in the spirit of this model that we're doing, social model community housing nonprofit, we will have that based on a sliding scale. So folks will pay more or less as they can. And what we know from other homes who have been doing this for a while, 10, 15 years, that there are folks who won't be able to pay anything, and there are folks who will be able to pay more than $250. And once we get up and running, there's a tremendous amount of paying it forward. Families and friends whose loved one will have died with us are so grateful for the experience they've had. They start paying it forward so that others can have that experience. So that will be part of our income revenue. And then in general, like all nonprofit organizations, we have a multi-pronged development plan, right? We will generate money and have already generated money from community giving, from fundraising events, from grants and foundations, from high-end, kind of angel investors, Founders Circle members, which we have received already. So it's like all nonprofits, an ongoing project, of raising funds. But we are very well positioned already. We have 160,000 in the bank, cash in hand right now. And after this month of year-end giving, we anticipate
So,
with
Dawn,
200,000 in the bank. And that's really significant to mention because we have raised that amount of money on a vision. We just went public with the gift of the house literally this week. So we have raised $200,000 in grassroots community giving on a vision that from gifts from $10 to $10,000. And that has been very validating for us, knowing that the community recognizes this need and has been giving to this need on a vision. And we've had over 400 individuals who have given to us so far. And we're not even over yet. So,
Dawn, can I interrupt you for a second? You have to speak into the mic where you are fading in and out. I know.
okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let me just move to a different place. I'm sorry about that. I hope this will be better.
Oh, good.
Very good.
It is.
Sorry about
Okay.
that. I hope you were able to get the gist of what I was saying.
So you have raised substantial money that you have now in the bank.
Yes.
Fred, does that answer your question about how people pay for them?
Yes, generally, yes.
So you will charge money to people, and whether they have the ability to pay or not remains to be seen.
Yes, and as a nonprofit, we are committed to, to raising the funds to make sure that those folks who need a home and don't have funds to pay, that we will ensure that we, the Lily House nonprofit community organization, has the resources to support them. Because it is very important to us that nobody is ever turned away from living at the Lily House because of lack of funds.
Great. There was a item on your application that said ownership to be completed. Has it been completed?
Right, we are in literally the final logistical steps of that. So the house has been bequeathed in a trust, so that's completely 100% protected. It's not being contested. It can't be contested. It's legally ours. We have been in a kind of a year-long probate period. As we all know, that just takes time. Courts were backed up with COVID, et cetera. But literally the last thing that has to happen before that deed can be transferred to us is the trustees, and there are two of them. It's the donor's sister and niece. They need to sign the quitclaim deed. And one of the trustees, the niece, has signed that claim and has submitted that to the lawyer. The other trustee, the sister, is out of the country right now, but she is literally any day that should be received by the attorney. And once the attorney has that quitclaim deed signed by both trustees, she can just go online, register the deed in the name of the Lily House, and it will be effective immediately. So that will happen literally any day now.
And just a caveat, we wouldn't be able to actually proceed until you had that ownership in hand. But
Of course.
the other thing, you understand that you wouldn't be receiving any money until after July 1, and even then would be subject to the signing of an agreement between us.
Correct. Thank you for that. And I have been in communication with Mary Rogers about that in terms of reimbursement, because we will be moving on some of our reservations the day we get the deed in hand.
Right.
And we're prepared to do that with the understanding that should we get some funds from you all, that we would be able to be reimbursed after July 1.
But
And
you have money in hand now to pay
Yes.
for some of the most critical.
yeah, we would kind of shift some money to do absolutely what we need to do now, knowing that we potentially could get reimbursed from that.
And for our membership, the only way that we could award them money would be as a housing grant. We have only the 4 buckets of money, so that would come out of the housing money. Any other questions that people have? Or any other comments that you have? Dawn?
God bless you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dawn, I think I speak for everybody and say we're very appreciative of the work that you and everyone else at Lily House are doing. And I think the only other question I had is, I know we're the only CPC you're asking. Is there any preference given to Wellfleet residents?
Yes, yes, good question. So there will be preference given to Wellfleet residents because that is now where we are. When we founded it, we weren't sure which Outer Cape, we were looking at Provincetown, Truro, and Wellfleet. We weren't sure where we were going to land. And now that we have landed in Wellfleet, the Wellfleet residents will have preference for sure, and we will be very much a presence within the Wellfleet community.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other
Thank you
questions
so
that
much.
folks have? Well, thank you for coming today. We much appreciate your information.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing. Harry, is there anything else that you want to add to the housing request?
Just very briefly, be respectful of your time, and thank you for your time. Currently, Wellfleet has met 25% of the state's 10% goal for affordable housing. We have in the pipeline, including the Lawrence Road project, another 57 or so units, which gets us halfway to the 114 units we need to actually make it to our 10% goal. So there's still another 57 units out there we have to find to have 10% of our housing affordable. And that doesn't even address the so-called accessible or workforce housing for those people that are above the affordable housing limits but still can't afford to buy or rent a home in Wellfleet. So there's a huge problem out here. The request we made for the 10% housing set aside is a small drop in the bucket, and we would certainly appreciate your consideration. The trust will be meeting on Monday, and we will discuss the borrowing. And if the CPC is amenable to considering our amending that request, we'd certainly appreciate it if that's where the Housing Trust ends up. Respectful of your time, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, it's all in writing in your packet. Thank you.
Any questions from the group? I would say, Harry mentioned something that's really important. If we were to buy some land with using CPA money, CPA allows us to support affordable housing up to 100% of the area median income. Most of the other programs that we are involved with are at 80% or below. So what that means is we could build houses for quote unquote working people in Wellfleet up to a higher limit than we could with any other source that's available to us right now. Okay, anything else on housing? If not, Andrea, are you representing CDP? I don't see Ann.
Yes,
here.
I am. Hi.
Okay. Do you want to speak to the CDP request?
Yes, good morning. Very briefly, my name is Andrea Aldana. I'm the Director of Housing Advocacy at the Community Development Partnership. I believe everything is in the proposal, and before you have questions, I just want to share a couple little things. One is, in speaking to other CPCs, a question that's come up is whether or not we intend for the Housing Institute to remain virtual. Certainly before COVID, everything was in person, and then we had to pivot. We have learned some lessons that there are benefits to meeting virtually. So COVID aside, if all that goes away, we would probably adopt a hybrid model. There are two basic elements of the Housing Institute. One is our workshops, and then the other is our peer-to-peer learning, our peer groups. Excuse me. And the workshops, we just always, no matter where we would hold the sessions, because we move around the region, the Lower Cape region, no matter what we would do, there would always be some towns or, on the furthest away that would have really low participation. And it's a fact that moving to a virtual format we are able to serve more of our communities more evenly. So it is likely that we will continue to offer the workshops virtually so that more people can participate. But then the peer group meetings, there just is a lot of value in meeting face to face. So as soon as we are able, we would like to resume having in-person peer group meetings, although that is not planned for the foreseeable future, at least through our current fiscal year. We're hopeful that might change, but as of now, we will continue to do virtual and work toward a hybrid model. So I wanted to address that. The other thing is I wanted you all to know that we're in the process of searching for a community organizer. This is a brand new position to the CDP. To be clear, this is not funded by the CPC, and the work of the organizer will not be funded by the CPC. But I wanted to mention that because having an organizer on staff really leverages the success of the Housing Institute by building advocates in the community that can support the hard work that you all do. So I wanted you to be aware of that. And then just a few announcements. We have our Outer Cape peer group meeting coming up on Tuesday. CPC members are always invited. We will be extending the conversation from our last workshop on how to fund community housing with Dana Lewinter, who's from Citizens Housing and Planning Association, helping towns think about how to break down barriers around funding community housing. And the workshop that we ran, I think it was last month now, as well as all workshops moving forward, are available to watch for free anytime on our YouTube channel. So please take advantage of that resource. And then our next workshop will be in January. It's Community by Design, and it's going to be focusing on the aesthetic side of affordable housing developments, trying to reframe the density conversation around design. And just a reminder that we do have a monthly e-newsletter where you can stay on the pulse of housing initiatives across the Lower Cape. That is available on our website as well, or just email me. So happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Andrea at this time?
Wonderful.
Michael, go ahead.
Yes, one of the questions that came up last meeting was how many Wellfleet people have been participating over the years? And do you anticipate that there'll be enough Wellfleet people eligible in future?
Yeah, I believe there was a number in the proposal that I don't have top of mind. So if anyone has that number handy, I'd appreciate that. Usually it's in the 20 to 30 number range. Wellfleet has particularly good participation, so it's probably on the higher end of that. I will say, as far as the pool of people who are our target audience, right, elected and appointed municipal officials and town staff, in Wellfleet specific, so we think about a pool of about 400 across the Lower Cape, and that includes some turnover, but you have to remember that we are really being expansive about who we're inviting to these events. It's any board or committee that has the potential to impact housing. So it's not strictly boards or committees that say have the word housing in them, right? It's Finance Committee, Open Space, Conservation Commission, Historical Commission. This is a really broad conversation. So there's a very large pool of people who could participate in the Institute, whether they are new to committees or returning.
20 people from Wellfleet have participated out of 240 who've attended.
Thank you.
Elaine?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that because I've been participating in these every year, and it's been a really broad mix of people. But the other thing that it does is connect us to our Lower and Outer Cape communities. And I think the momentum that we're seeing now all across the Lower Cape has a lot to do with having been brought together to share and learn from each other through this mechanism that the CDP has put forward.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? I just want to take a second and congratulate Andrea and the CDP. As many of you know, the recommendation for the 95 Lawrence development is going to a partnership of a company called POA, which is Preservation of Affordable Housing, a very large nonprofit and a industry leader they are teaming with CDP. So we are going to have even more involvement and more reason to support them. Thank you.
Terribly
Andrea.
exciting. Thank you.
Okay. I am mindful of the time, so I think that the next one that I had on my list is the historic documents. And Jim, are you going to speak to that or anything you want to add to that?
Yes, I will add briefly. This is a continuation grant, and the proposal would fund the preparation and filing of 68 additional historic building inventory forms that are known as Form Bs with the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and sponsor some informational workshops, an informational workshop series. As brief background on this, you probably know some of it, the Wellfleet Historic Commission is charged with researching and preparing inventory forms on historic buildings in Wellfleet. And to that end, a street survey plan was completed in 2018. It was updated this year. And the plan identified 782 buildings that were at least 75 years old, and a few modern mid-century buildings for which Wellfleet is quite famous. I can furnish some statistics on this. Of the 782 buildings identified by the survey, 204 were classified as not historically significant. So to date, Form Bs have been completed in other phases of this project on 348 of the 578 buildings regarded as historically significant. That's about 60%. Of the remaining 230 historically significant buildings, 68 are rated as high priority. And those are the buildings that we'd like to focus on in this phase of the work. And we have an historic preservation expert who is highly competent and prepared to continue the work with us, Lynn Smilage. As for the workshop series, the commission is also charged with informing the public. And we recently sponsored a very highly successful workshop entitled Wellfleet's Historic Buildings and the Stories They Tell. It was conducted by preservation specialist Lynn Smilage over Zoom. It attracted a large audience of about 185 people. And there was a very enthusiastic response to it, people asking for more. So we have plans to offer some other workshops, and these would include a workshop for realtors, an informational one for them, and a celebration event of the birthday of Wellfleet sea captain and entrepreneur L.D. Baker. That would be in collaboration with the Wellfleet Historical Society and Museum. So we're requesting funds to underwrite the expenses of these workshops and events, including the presenter's fees. So that's sort of the twofold nature of the proposal.
Great, Jim. Congratulations on that seminar. It was terrific.
Thank you.
Are there questions that the committee has to Jim? I'm going to just hold off before we go to the museum request and make a suggestion. I know David has to leave, and we've been at it for almost 2 hours, and we will have the museum presentation. But I'm wondering if before we get to the allocation of money, which I think will be a significant discussion, I'd like to have everybody here for it, if the committee would entertain having another meeting next week to take that up, as well as the other things, rather than try and compress it into time. And I don't know about others, but you get fanny fatigue after a couple hours. So is that something that is acceptable to the committee, that we schedule another meeting and we'll take it up from there?
Yeah, I think that would be great. It would give us, it's not just my situation, but it would give us, all of us time individually to think about this and then have a good discussion next week.
Yeah, I think so too, David. I think if people are amenable to that, I'm just looking.
Can't do it. I'm just all filled up.
No, Jan, so we don't have to have it on a Wednesday, or we don't have to have it on a morning.
Oh, okay, that would help.
So,
every single morning is full, so I can't do it next week, but in afternoons.
Is the afternoon, is the afternoon of Wednesday happens
The 15th, yeah.
The 15th
Yeah.
is a possibility. Happens to be my anniversary.
Oh,
So I'm gonna, you're
Don't
talking
do it
about
on that day.
conflicting
You'll get in
interests.
trouble.
I'm not going to be available that afternoon.
You are not, is that, I'm sorry, is that you, Mary?
No, I have another meeting that afternoon.
Okay, how about the morning of Tuesday, the 14th, or the after, you say every morning is bad for you, Jan?
yes.
How about the?
Oh,
afternoon?
Monday is all right. Monday morning, I'm okay.
I'm going to Palm Springs later today and I will not be back until Wednesday. And I'd like to be able to be here for the conversation and voting.
Did you
How
say?
about Thursday afternoon,
um,
the 16th?
16th.
I have a meeting on Thursday afternoon that I can't switch.
Tuesday, the
Friday,
14th.
Monday, the 14th.
I cannot do.
Tuesday, the 14th.
Cannot do.
Cannot
do.
Okay, so this is a little,
Can't meet.
how about on Friday, the 17th?
Nope, going to Connecticut early in the morning.
Well, I'm just trying to accommodate everybody's needs here, Jan, so.
I hear you. I hear you, but
So
Can we meet in the
let's go.
evening? Would an
Is an
evening work for
meeting,
people?
is an evening meeting better? for
Let's
folks?
start with Mary. Mary, when do you have next week?
So the times I don't have are easier. That's Monday morning and Wednesday afternoon.
What about
Okay.
Thursday?
Thursday is good all day.
Okay, who
How
doesn't
about
have Thursday?
Thursday? How about Thursday evening for you, Jan?
yep. Perfect.
If we propose a meeting for 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 16th,
Perfect.
does that
Perfect.
work for folks?
Yeah,
I might not be home by that time. I'm not sure if I'll be in a car. I don't know if I can be part
could-
of the meeting in the car.
Yes,
You can by
call. You
phone.
can call in on your phone, Geraldine.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we will meet again to take up the question of the allocation of money, as well as the other items on our agenda for the December 16th at 7 o'clock in the evening.
Perfect.
Good.
Okay,
we're good.
all right. So I'm very appreciative of everybody's time and effort today. And if you'd like, can we proceed to the presentation from the Historical Museum?
Please.
Sorry, I've got to go, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your time.
Bye,
today.
David.
Sure.
Eric, are you going to speak to that application? I think he's muted.
There we go.
Jim?
I'm not sure if John Connors, our president, wants to.
Yeah, I'm
make a
here as
statement
well.
first.
Okay, I'm sorry. So who would like to speak to this?
I'm John Connors. Can you everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
good.
yeah.
I'm John Connors, and with me today, I'm the president of the Board of Directors. And with me today is Barbara Carey, our treasurer, as is Eric Wilson, Winslow, the chair of our building committee. And as we are listening in this morning, I'm understanding that our application is way over the top.
Yes.
It's not like we don't need the money, but it's in realizing the availability of funds, we will certainly be appreciative of anything that, and grateful for anything that you folks decide that we're deserving of. So just wanted to clear the air on that. We're certainly not going to push terribly hard for that, realizing what the funding is. So with that, if there are any particular questions, we can go right to them.
John, can you just describe what the money is for?
Sure.
This time.
Yes, let me turf this over to Eric as the head of our building committee. Are you with us, Eric?
Yes, yeah, thank you. And first of all, with a couple grandchildren in the elementary school, I hope you help out as much as you can with the playground. This is a multi-year project that started about 3 years ago. And since then, with the help of CPC funding, we've been able to restore the 1800s facade of the building, the Main Street side of the building. We are now proceeding to build an addition on the back of the building, which will house a stairway, elevators, handicap bathrooms, a small kitchenette, and we'll bring them, open up the museum so it can be utilized throughout and make it handicapped accessible and compliant with all the architectural access boards requirements. So it's about a 600 square foot addition. It's 2 stories. With the money we presently have with the CPC funds and the Massachusetts Cultural Council funds, we're going to be able to put the structure up and make it tight to the weather, get the windows, siding on. And that is about as far as we're going to go at this point. But we would like to continue working on it. And with any kind of funds we have, we'd be able to hopefully seamlessly continue. We have a capital campaign to raise money. We also are trying to apply for other grants. And we hope by this summer that the structure will be up and we can start doing some of the interior work. We've already spent quite a bit of money on having engineering done for a sprinkler system. We've put deposits down for the elevator, and we've been paying for architectural fees, and that's all paid for. So we've spent well over 50,000 already on this. And it's just our hope that we will continue to seamlessly move forward and in about 2 or 3 years have the whole project done, including outside landscaping and handicap parking. We are almost finished building a stairway from the town hall parking lot to the back of the building. So it'll be heavily used access to the building. And again, we appreciate all your support.
Thank you, Eric.
If I may just add one more
Sure,
thing.
Michael, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, so I appreciate your flexibility in terms of the funding. Can you identify, if it actually is for a handicapped use, which of these items on your list are the highest priorities that would allow you to move forward and attain some sort of access?
Well, the biggest cost item is the elevator. We've already put in about a $35,000 deposit on that. But before we go to the next phase, we have to obviously get the outside of the structure built. It's going to be another $150,000 to get the elevator in. That will allow handicapped access to the second floor of the museum. It's hard to imagine really trying to complete other things until that's in place. So there's no easy answer to what to do first. There's plumbing, there's electrical work, there's insulating. They're all big ticket items, and we envision having to raise between these funds and whatnot another $1 million to bring it to completion. And I don't think until it's completed will it be fully accessible.
Thank you, Eric.
A question.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for presenting today. In way of question, well, and in way of a statement, this committee has been very supportive of this project. I think that we've given well over $1 million to it. And in the past, I know that the elevator and the ADA accessibility came up, and other, when speakers spoke before, they were going to be looking at other avenues through the state and cultural council and other entities that would provide for additional funds. And candidly, I think that by listening today, you're aware of, and especially this year, that we're limited by funds and because of circumstance. And I'm wondering if these are things that, after you hearing all these things, if it's possible for you to look into other sources and or postpone. allowing us more money for other projects this year.
Do you want to answer that, John, or do you?
Yeah, it's kind of a difficult thing, in the sense that whatever you can spare for us, we would be able to use very well. So with that in mind, I
So the over $1
ask
million,
for-
I mean, you guys have received a lot of money from this committee. At the other meeting, we were told that you would be looking for other avenues of funding. So what are those other avenues for funding, please?
Okay. Barbara, are you here? Yes, Barbara Carey,
I am, yes,
this is
we,
our financial gal.
we do have a Mass Cultural Council facilities grant of 250,000 that we've not drawn on yet. And since our last CPC application, we have raised about $44,000 in private donations. And we are, as Eric mentioned, we'll be starting a new comprehensive campaign shortly. And we also, I guess, in addition to what Eric and John have mentioned, we have put about $80,000 of our own into the patio and irrigation system out front.
And can I just ask, Barbara, you do charge for some things, right?
The historicals, money raising.
You raise money, I mean, from fees and whatnot.
Well, we traditionally over the past, we have had our it's been a really successful house tour event every year that raises between like 7,000 and 8,000. That has not happened for the past 2 years due to COVID, and we're not at all sure it's going to happen this year. And other similar events like Strawberry Festival and all, again, we've taken those types of hits. Where we have been successful, but not hugely so in terms of dollars, we do charge for our walking tours. And I think over the past summer, I don't have the number right in front of me. I believe we've raised maybe about 2,500 in walking tour fees.
How many people participated in total on the walking tours, would you say? Is it 1,000 people or 500?
I'd say that per walking tour, and this is based on just my observing the group.
Yeah,
when-
just a ballpark number. Yes.
Ballpark, it would be between like maybe 8 and 12, maybe 8 and 12 people per tour.
Right.
They can't take too many. I mean, it's around the town and it's one guide,
No, I'm just saying in total, the tours have attracted 1,000 people, 500 people? I think they're wildly successful is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, if I may, Barbara,
If-
we've
I
been
think
very,
I think it's like 150 or something. I really can't.
Okay.
Over the summer, and that's just this past year.
Great. All right. Are there other questions, or John, did you have another comment you'd like to make?
yes, I do. I would just let you know that we've been, as everybody, been very heavily restricted with what we can do and offer with COVID as far as access to the museum. And having said that, we've been able to keep the doors open, and the walking tours, as you say, Gary, have been very successful and getting more so. So that's pretty much all I wanted to add. We wanted to mention also the patio and the garden that we built with our own funds so that's part of that 80,000 that Barbara was talking about. So as I say, we'll be grateful for any consideration you may give us.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. And thank you for your patience today.
Yeah.
Somebody had to be at the end, but.
Thank you very much. You know, we never do any of this for ourselves, and I see this, your board agonizing over how to get this money out to people, and we do appreciate your work too. So
Good. Thank you, John. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions for today that people have on our committee?
I move we adjourn, Gary.
I
and
think so.
correct a little
We have
bit.
exhausted, we've exhausted our 2 hours. We'll see you again on the evening of the 16th. Be well, and we'll talk to you then. Thank you all for your participation
And
today.
thank you for accommodating me. Yes, thank you.
That's okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.